I mean, you can just tell within 3 seconds of looking at this guy. All in with Chris Hayes. You can just tell by looking at this guy. He might as well have dipshit written on his forehead. It is kind of funny to me that, like, the way the show goes and some of the things that come out of my mouth, and then we have Caleb and Brown still reaching out and wanting to work with me for some reason. But anyways, this might as well say dipshit right across this. So let's listen to what Chris Hayes has to say on Bitcoin. I'm going to speed it up because he's very painful to listen to. But let's see what Chris Hayes has to say.
So for very understandable reasons, Democrats and Democratic regulators have worked hard to keep crypto, which has been supremely volatile, locked off from the rest of financial systems, so that if it crashes, it doesn't bring the entire US economy down with it, requiring a bailout. Some rich people holding a lot of crypto disagree with that strategy. They want a bailout, implicit or explicit, if the house of cards comes crashing down. To that end, after Republicans took back the Senate with the help of money from the crypto industry, they now have a plan to return the favor. And I want you to listen to this part because
I'm gonna stop there. So within the first 20 seconds there, he said that we know, like, these people just, like, they key on these buzzwords. So within the first 30 seconds there, he said that we know Bitcoin is supremely volatile. And he said that Bitcoin and crypto was the reason that Trump won the election there. That's basically what he said there. Let me repeat that, or let me replay that. Oh.
Extremely volatile, locked off from the rest of financial systems, so that if it crashes, it doesn't bring the entire US economy down with it, requiring a bailout. Some rich people holding a lot of crypto disagree with that strategy. They want a bailout, implicit or explicit, if the house of cards comes crashing down. To that end, after Republicans took back the Senate with the help of money from the crypto industry, they now have a plan to return the favor. And I want you to listen to this part because no one's really talking about this, but the elements of the plot are just there in plain sight. Senate Republicans are working on a bill that would transfer billions and billions of dollars of money from the US government, from taxpayers, and hand it over to a handful of big crypto holders.
We got a present for President Donald Trump. Here it is. This is the Bitcoin Reserve Bill in the Senate of the United States to establish a Bitcoin strategic reserve, a network of secure storage vaults, purchase program, and other programs to ensure the transparent management of Bitcoin holdings of the federal government.
Yes, the Bitcoin Act from Republican Senator Cynthia Lummis of Wyoming. It would establish a Federal Reserve of Bitcoin. It's truly one of the most audacious schemes I've ever seen in Congress. Here's why. Rich folks who own a lot of crypto have a problem, right? Cryptocurrency, Bitcoin in particular, is a very valuable asset. Single Bitcoin worth over 100 grand. Some very, very wealthy people own hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. David Sachs, for instance, has a lot of crypto. That said, it's not a liquid asset like cash that you can easily spend or invest or use for practical purposes. It has no practical use really outside of a few gimmicks, and it's very useful for criminal cartels.
Holy fuck. Let's just listen to that part one more time there. He said that the only thing it has value for is a couple gimmicks. And of course, he had to throw in there, it's used by criminal cartels.
X, for instance, has a lot of crypto. That said, it's not a liquid asset like cash.
It's not a liquid asset. Really. So you're telling me that I couldn't sell my Bitcoin in 5 seconds here to any person on earth? It is the most liquid asset that has ever existed before.
That you can easily spend or invest or use for practical purposes. It has no practical use really outside of a few gimmicks, and it's very useful for criminal cartels. So if you're an investor, you're sitting on this speculative asset. You can't actually do anything with it, but it's worth a lot of money. What's more, if you try to sell it all off, right, to get rid of it, the hordes of Bitcoin on the exchanges, that's going to flood the market and tank the price. So what's the solution? They're going to sell it to the US government.
Over 5 years, the United States will assemble 1 million Bitcoin, 5% of the world's supply, and it will be held for a minimum of 20 years and can be used for one purpose: reduce our debt.
Reduce our debt? You can't pay the debt down in Bitcoin. Are you tracking this? Are you tracking what's being planned and announced in person here, right?
Well, we're tracking you, Chris. That's why you're on the show today. So we can always come back to see how stupid you sounded in 2024. So you think that you're like this genius guy who's outsmarting everybody else because you're the only one who's putting this thing together in your head? Yeah, we're going to go back and bookmark this in 5 years from now, Chris, and see how smart you sounded, for sure. That's what's going to happen.
The US government handing billions of dollars into the pockets of rich crypto holders. The plan is that the Bitcoin Act would have the government sell off some of its gold reserves, the stuff from Fort Knox, and use the money to buy 1 billion Bitcoin. At current market value, that would cost $100 billion. Now, the actual price would likely be much higher because that market value would almost certainly rise as a result when a new buyer enters the market and boosts the price of the asset the buyer is now legally obligated to buy.
Sorry, I keep interrupting here, but this is just way too much for me. Listen to, I don't know how good the sound is here, but the one thing I noticed very early on in this video is how echoey it is in there. I think this is like a perfect video to look back in 5 years from now. Like this guy, Chris Hayes, I've never heard him before. I don't ever plan on listening to him again. But you can tell that this guy's literally just sitting in a studio, empty studio, like the MSNBC. You can hear the echo in there because nobody gives a shit what these people are saying anymore. It's just the perfect video for how wrong these people are. And just listen for the echo in the back. You can tell that this guy's sitting in a huge studio all by himself.
This is an enormous heist. They're just backing the truck up to the government in front of all of us. A massive bailout to the crypto world. The opportunity to turn a speculative asset into real cash on your dime. And presumably David Sachs, as the crypto czar, will help usher that plan through. And there is a real irony here. For a long time, as long as I've been covering crypto, which is over a decade, advocates have sold crypto as this libertarian project, right? We don't need government. We don't need banks. We don't need financial intermediaries. We don't need regulation. Here's Sachs himself making that point on a podcast 2 years ago.
There is a huge risk of currency debasement when the government is in control, and particularly when you have the world's reserve currency. There's just such an enormous temptation to print money to finance your budget and to rack up loans that become unpayable. What Bitcoin offers is a different kind of currency where it's not backed by a government, it's backed by math, it's backed by encryption. And so you don't have to trust the government.
All of that lofty rhetoric goes right out the window, though, when Republicans decide they want the government to initiate a massive upward transfer of wealth.
Like this guy doesn't even make sense. He just showed a clip of David Sachs talking about how the government's spending is out of control and how Bitcoin, you don't need a government to back it. And he's trying to prove a point here, saying that none of that means anything anymore because the government's going to start buying Bitcoin. The government, it's not going to be backed by the US government just because the US government is buying Bitcoin. Like, is this guy really this stupid, or is he just trying to spin it in a way where the average person wouldn't understand what's happening here? Because that does not make any sense. It's still backed by math. The government just is going to hold some of it.
And bail out the crypto industry.
Like, I don't even know. I see a ton of comments here. So everybody is agreeing with what I'm saying here. Like, that was the most insane 5 minutes in TV history before. That was like, take everything for the last 16 years of what the media has been saying about Bitcoin, put it into one 5-minute clip with some dipshit wearing big glasses, and that's what you get. Like, it shouldn't bother me this much. It should, like, my blood's boiling right now listening to this, because the thing that bothers me is, like, I know, you know how far out to lunch this guy is. But the fact that they're putting this on TV where there's a lot of people who actually watch this, and they don't know the ins and outs of Bitcoin. They don't understand what he's saying, but they hear that and they think that for some reason this is a bad thing. It's just, I can't even believe that, you know, I don't know what changes it. Like, the thing for me that makes me happy about it is that these dipshits are toast. Like, they're toast. Nobody really pays attention to them anymore. They're, again, just listening to the echo in that studio, you can tell that nobody's there, nobody cares. But it's like, he's been covering for this. He says he's been covering crypto for 10 years. And you're still that stupid? Are you stupid, or are you just like intentionally misleading people? And I don't know what's worse. But like, I could probably spend an hour breaking down that 5-minute clip and talking about how wrong that whole thing was. But the shitty thing is like, a couple hundred people watch this show, and maybe a couple thousand people watch that show now. But, you know, it's sad. That's all it is. It's sad.